Good evening and welcome to ELOsoFumarTakes. This is our 70th take live from Euless, Texas. I'm your host as always, Bear Duplessis, and I'm so excited to welcome you all in tonight. We're going to have a fantastic show. It's going to be, I don't know what direction it's going to go. I'm fully prepared for this to just be the most awesome show without having truly knowledge of where it's going. It's going to be a lawyer's worst nightmare because I'm not going to know the answers to any of the questions like at all. But totally excited about it. And before I introduce my guest, let's get some of the business out of the way and thank our awesome sponsors. Our first sponsor, of course, is Drew Estate. This Drew Estate story is one of a daring heartbreak and success, but most of all, one for passion for cigars in the country of Nicaragua, where they have been making cigars since 1998. You can check out the latest details at the www.barnsmoker.com for the upcoming 2019 Barn Smoker program dates, including massive new additions. They're going to be really focusing on the American cigar smoking experience, as well as benefiting an awesome charity of Cigars for Warriors. A wonderful opportunity there. There are tickets already available for some of the events this one, but these are the locations and dates for the 2019 Barn Smoker. So check it out at barnsmoker.com. Florida Barn Smokers in Claremont, Florida on May 18th. The Pennsylvania Barn Smokers in Strasburg, Pennsylvania on the 20th of July. The Connecticut Barn Smokers in Windsor, Connecticut, South Windsor, Connecticut, on the 10th of August. Check out in the Kentucky Barn Smoker in Hopkinsville, Kentucky on the 5th of October. And then everyone should go to the Louisiana Barn Smoker in Convent, Louisiana, because it'll be on my birthday, October 26th. And it'll be an awesome affair. And if you guys are listening to ELOsoFumarTakes on wherever podcasts are broadcast, that's Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Podbeam, TuneIn, Blueberry even. Everywhere you listen to podcasts, you listen exclusively because of Cornelius and Anthony Premium Cigars. They're steeped in tobacco tradition. For over 150 years, the Bailey family has been a part of America's tobacco heritage, passionately caring for the land they cultivate in Keysville, Virginia. Cornelius and Anthony's devotion to the finest grown tobacco and foremost aspects of craftsmanship allow them to introduce the most exquisite cigars to the market. They invite you to enjoy their portfolio of premium hand-rolled cigars and experience their dedication to producing an exceptional product. So if you're listening to ELOsoFumarTakes, you are listening exclusively because of Cornelius and Anthony Premium Cigars. And it is my pleasure to welcome in our guests for our 70th take here on ELOsoFumarTakes. I'm so excited about this. We tried to already do this. This is how excited I am. This is like we're doing it for the first time officially, but we've almost had it done already. But for the first time ever, I'm pleased to welcome in Mr. Robert Caldwell of Caldwell Cigars. Robert, how are you doing tonight?
Doing well, thank you. And sorry about last time. As I mentioned to you, I don't know if the viewers knew, but I had a little bit of a machete accident, and I ended up in a chair getting a tetanus shot and so forth. So,
I did not share the details of it. I just said that we had an unfortunate emergency incident that you wouldn't be able to be on. So a machete incident. You're healed up. Everything's good. All limbs, everything's accounted for, right?
It actually wasn't that bad, but the thing is, I had an open wound on my leg, and I had tried to catch a refrigerator that was falling off of a truck with my leg. I do dumb shit like that. So like I broke the fall of a refrigerator with my leg. And then, so that was injury one. So I had like a gaping hole. And then I tried to catch a falling piece of plywood, like the entire piece, with my leg in the same spot. So I had like a gaping hole, and then I scraped all the skin off of it. And then, so the next day I'm outside and I'm trying to maneuver a machete to cut like a plant that was in one of those plastic planters that the roots had kind of grown through it.
Right.
And I'm slicing it. And I took a step forward, and my machete, I got a couple of them, but I keep them like you could shave with them. So I stepped into it, and I just, nice little clean slice, but into the blood, into what was already going on with my leg. And I went in like a 1/4 inch, and it was clean. But the machete, it had been raining, and the machete was kind of rusty, and the rust was just like beating off of it in water. And I said, you know what? I haven't had a tetanus shot in like 15 years. And I missed the last one because I cut myself with a rusty nail. And then, so this time I actually Googled tetanus, and then I'm like, oh, 25% of people that get it die. So then I decided to do the responsible thing and go to the, not even the ER. I went to, there's a hospital by my house, and they have a urgent care facility. So I went there and then got my shots and all that.
No, definitely, definitely a smart move. And again, we're glad you're okay.
Thank
obviously.
you.
So
Me
that's,
too.
I mean, that's the most important thing. When you messaged me that you weren't going to be able to make it, you're like, yeah, I had a bit of a machete accident. Like my mind was just racing with like all the worst possibilities ever. It was like,
Yeah.
it's like a
on the phone with
combination of,
Jacqueline Sears actually when I did it. She's one of my partners with the Lost and Found project. And I'm like, fuck, I just cut my leg open with a machete. And she's like, oh. She's like, that's nice. We could use that somewhere. Little marketing deal.
I was going to say, always looking for marketing opportunities.
Yeah.
Could call it Danny Trejo's nightmare.
There you
go. So, Robert, again, really just again, so glad you're okay, and really pleased to welcome you in tonight, and for a milestone take of the 70th take. So it's I can't believe I've done 70 of these, and I'm barely just getting you on, but I appreciate the time. And so it was really funny. We were talking about family a little bit before the show, and not to get too far into it, but something we were talking about is that, well, something that I mentioned, you didn't mention this, but when you're raised a certain way by your family, the tendency is for children to basically do the opposite of their parents. Like if you're raised to, in a really, really strict household, there's a pretty large tendency that the kid's going to be a wild child and go the opposite direction of it and everything. And so that kind of leads me into my first question. So, when you first got into the cigar business, you were part of a collaborative team that didn't work out, unfortunately. And when you parted ways, of course, and everything like that. So, and in my mind, okay, so if you're going to get back into the cigar game and you just had this experience that did not go well, the tendency would be to go completely to the opposite end of that, which means never work with anyone ever again. Going to go totally solo, do everything. And but when you came back into the cigar business, you pretty quickly started teaming up with other folks again, started collaborating with other individuals. Notably, Matt Booth, Tony Bellotto of La Barba, of course, and then AJ Fernandez, who isn't partnering with AJ these days, and of course True Estate Cigars as well. So I mean, you've got a really, really, really awesome team that you've kind of built and associated with this time around. What made you decide to kind of throw your hat back into the collaborative ring, so to speak?
So the first engagement that I had that you referenced was with Christian Roa. So I'd rented a space in Miami to be an office for my other business, which I have a company, and I got started in the cigar industry selling cigars to restaurants and hotels. So coincidentally or beautifully, there was a great opportunity that arose in the neighborhood that I was. So I rented a space in a neighborhood called Wynwood, which was like a real shitty part of town, literally the cheapest rent you could get. And I signed the lease like on a Friday, and all my friends told me I was insane because it was a super dangerous neighborhood, and there was nobody there. It was like me, and then I think they were building like some type of coffee shop, but everything else was run down, boarded up warehouses. So everyone said I was crazy, but it was the cheapest rent you could find anywhere in Miami. So I rented a space there, and then over the course of the weekend, there started being some chatter, and then I think Sunday there was a special edition of Miami Herald came out that said that Louis Vuitton was coming into the Miami Design District, which was the adjacent neighborhood, and they were going to open, all the Louis brands that they own. Plus, they were going to have like Rolex and Cartier and all this shit opening up. And then so I get a call on Monday morning like, hey, did you sign that lease? And that was from Christian. I said, yeah. And he said, let me come by. And he came by, and then we came up with this idea of doing a cigar factory. But what happened over the course of like Monday to Tuesday was basically everybody that was in that design district neighborhood moved immediately to the Wynwood neighborhood. So just everything got rented, and the neighborhood went through this big revitalization thing. So it was really a cool, unique opportunity there to come out with a project. And we did. We had a brand. We had Wynwood Cigar Factory, and then we had a variety of different brands. But we would roll pack ship same day out of Miami. So it was a really cool thing. But unfortunately, it didn't work out because we were very good friends, but it was like a two-headed snake. I mean, it was like literally just you go nowhere. You just sit in the same direction. So I kind of learned my lesson from that, where unfortunately, when you have two guys that are, both trying to run a business and they're both going in other directions, you end up with a non-working relationship. So I like to describe that as basically a marriage that ended in divorce. We were a great girlfriend, boyfriend. We got married and it sucked. And then so from there forward, of course, I started Caldwell. And then so to go back to the collaborative thing a little further. So when I started Caldwell, I started that company with a very good friend of mine. And then later on came another friend as kind of investor partner. But when we started the company, I was like, look, this is what I want to do. You guys can be with me. You know, we'll split up the company as we need to, but it needs to be understood, not only verbally, but on paper, that I am in control, because I can't be in a situation again where there's two alphas, because no business can have two people running it. I mean, or very, very few. So basically, I mean, it just doesn't work. So this is my direction. And then from there, you know, if we make this arrangement, then it has to be understood that, you know, I don't know everything, but I'm going to follow my instinct and you guys believe in me and we do this thing together. So that was kind of where we started the company. So you referenced a few collaborations. So early on, you know, we started making our brands. We started doing our stuff. We came out with Eastern Standard King is Dead, Long Live the King. So then actually you missed a couple, but the first partnership brand or non-manufactured brand that we launched was Blind Man's Bluff. So that's made by third party in Honduras. It's a factory called La Epe, which is where they made Camacho and some other brands, but now it's moved to another factory. I don't know what it's called. And then we started distributing La Barba cigars. And then from there, we ended up doing Anastasia with Ernesto Carrillo, which is a one single brand partnership. And then from there, we ended up doing the All Out Kings. And then from there, we ended up doing Hit and Run and the Tea. And then we started distributing Matt Booth's products. So your question basically was like, what's different to make me want to re-engage that type of relationship?
Yeah.
And I guess it kind of boils down to, I built my backbone of what I do first. So I have Caldwell and all of our brands. And then from there, we can take risks and we can work with other people. Whereas before, the dynamic was everything was kind of fused at the hip. And now we're fused at the hip with what we do. But then we have little stuff sticking out from there. And then furthermore, when it came to working with all the third-party manufacturers, whether it's Carrillo or whether it was Drew Estate or the Camacho factory or AJ Fernandez, it's also kind of like a level of trust that we had built over the course of time, where I felt extremely comfortable with working with these guys. That being said, you know, it is a different engagement when you're not controlling your production. So, and you're not controlling the nature of what you do. And each one of those relationships is different. One of them is a contract manufacturing relationship, and then the rest of them are basically co-owned brands. And it just boils down to, I think, a very, very mutual level of trust between myself and the other party. And every single one of those relationships has worked beautifully. Not to say that they haven't been without some type of issue. I'm going to find my lighter. Not to say that they haven't been without some type of issue, because everything has its problem here or there. But for the most part, we've done very, very well. And all those have been exceptionally smooth relationships. And then with the distributed brands that we have, whether it's La Barba or Room 101, which fall under the Down and Back, which is the kind of company that distributes all those brands, those same thing. I mean, it's guys that I have trust with, and they have faith in what we can do as a company, and then we work together as a team in that sense to try to push the brands forward. So I guess it's really just you know, I don't know. I covered myself in a different way with them, and I built what I was doing first. I didn't come out of the gates doing it. It took maybe, I think, you know, in the game for a year and a half with what I was doing, and kind of built my foundation, and then from there started branching out. And then the flip side of that, or the other thing, is if any of those things don't work, we're not dead in the water. It's a little chink in the armor, and then we get to move forward. So, you know, there's not a high level of risk like I had before with working with one partner exclusively. So on all the partnership stuff, if any of it stopped working, then on to the next one, or refocus on what you're doing, you know?
Yeah. I mean, if anything, it gives you a lot of options and flexibility, you know, and, you know, what may work, you know, with like Tony, for example, under La Barba, if there's like, if you all are working on something there that may not be a good fit, but it might be a good fit for another one of your extensions, or just under the Caldwell brand itself, you have that flexibility to be able to, you know, kind of a little bit more control, I guess is kind of where I'm going. Is that kind of ultimately the model that you're going to use kind of going forward as Caldwell continues to grow?
Can you specify? Sorry.
Like, are you going to continue to, you know, are you going to continue with these flexible projects, you know, and partnerships and collaborations going forward? Is that kind of what the future is of Caldwell? Or,
I mean, Yeah. No, I mean, we'll continue with what we have. I really love because we have like, Caldwell, and then we have all the other shit. And I really love all the other shit because it's very, very different. Because before us, there had been some limited collaborations, or there had been contract manufacturing always, but there'd been some limited kind of engagements between companies to do partnership brands. And I feel like we genuinely broke the mold when it came to that, because we just started doing more and more collaborative things with other companies. And I think they're super cool. But our main interest at this point, and kind of always, has been just re-engaging and rebuilding the core. And I feel like, as things go and you keep doing the collaborative efforts, you've got to have to always focus on that. So this year in particular, we're focusing on what we do, our core brands, and then going forward, we'll see, because there's also the question of who would be the next ones, because we can keep doing stuff with Tony and with Matt, AJ, those things are already engaged. But, a lot of guys say, okay, well, who would you work with next? And then it's like, I don't know. I mean, whoever's left, because what would be left interesting, and there are a bunch of guys that I would potentially work with, but it would also depend what it was, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. So like you said, like you were alluding to earlier, the right partnership, the right time, giving you that flexibility so that you can, you can feel good about the decision and the partnership and where it's going. I want to get a little bit more into some of those partnerships here in just a second, but I just lit up this cigar that from you guys that I absolutely love. It's fantastic. Long live the king, the new Mad MF. And I really, really enjoy the cigar. I think it's absolutely fantastic. It's got I think the blend is pretty interesting about it. It was because there's something about Indonesian tobacco, and finding that kind of like using that kind of like in the filler, or in this case the binder, and it really adds that kind of exotic nuance to a cigar that I really enjoy. When you were putting together this cigar, what kind of interested me is that it is nothing similar to its counterpart. The original Long Live the King. The original Long Live the King is, Dominican binder, wrapper and binder, Dominican Corojo rather, wrapper and binder. Now there is Dominican in the filler in this cigar, but that's where the similarity stops. Like everything is completely different. What made you decide to kind of go that complete different? Is it part of the identity, or was it just how it worked out? How'd that come to be?
I don't really agree with the idea of like having a Connecticut Habano and Maduro and having the same cigar with different wrappers on it. So we've done that one time, and that's with Blind Man and Blind Man Connecticut. It's the same blend with two different wrappers, and it just worked there. But I feel like I like to go back to the drawing board, and I like to do things the hard way. And just because you like the original Long Live the King doesn't mean I need to throw a Maduro wrapper on it, and that's Long Live the King Maduro, because there's tons of people that maybe don't like that cigar. So the idea is to create something that will identify with the smoker of that product, but also maybe open the door to somebody new that doesn't like necessarily what that. So I like to have like a foot in and a foot out on any of the line extensions. And we had Eastern Standard Sun Grown. It's the same thing. I mean, that's actually by no means the same smoker, because it's such a stronger cigar that I don't think it identifies in any way with the profile of the guy that smokes Eastern Standard, but it does with the guy that smokes Eastern Standard in the morning, because it's their first cigar, because it's too light for them to smoke in the afternoon. So I like to maybe have something that fits one part of the palate of the original blend, but then it kind of offers something different to encourage more guys to try it. Because the amount of guys that have come to me with either Sun Grown or the Mad Mofo, both of them, it's like, wait a minute, what's this? And that's exactly what we wanted, because of course you're going to have the guys that are behind the brand going to that brand naturally, but then opening the door to somebody new because you have a little bit of a different profile or something different going on with a cigar. But to me, I don't know, I like making cigars. And I do have some cigars where I've thrown a different wrapper on it, and it's amazing. I mean, that does happen also, but I like to kind of build things from the ground up. And actually, this parlays back into your references of working with other people. There's Pennsylvania tobacco in that cigar.
Right.
I never worked with that tobacco until I worked with Drew Estate. And then I continued working with that tobacco, or Matt was started working with that tobacco in the factory where we produced. So they had the tobacco there. So I worked with Drew Estate. I got familiar with the tobacco. Matt wanted to have the tobacco in the farce blend. So he got the tobacco into the factory. And then I'm at the factory and I'm kicking tires and I start working with the tobacco. So that's kind of the full circle of what those partnerships can bring. Because without Matt and without working with Drew Estate, I never would have had that cigar put together that way.
That's interesting. Pennsylvania is one of those kind of mini trends. It's never been a full out, like, overly done or overly used tobacco. It's kind of been in the background, and it's kind of had peaks and valleys over like the last decade and stuff. And I think it's one of those tobaccos that if it kind of gets tossed into a blend, either a filler, binder, or in some cases even wrapper, even though it's a little peppery for some people, can be pretty polarizing. But I think it really adds something to a blend. And in this case, I definitely agree with it. Now you're actually smoking. You had showed me before the show started. You're smoking a La Barba Purple, but not something that's available to the in regular production, correct?
Yeah, I'm smoking a 42 by 4, a little shorty. So we made I don't know. My business partner Juan had this brilliant idea to make these little short sizes, like sample sizes of all of our cigars, to hand out to retailers to get them to try the cigar. But then, of course, they're like, "This is nice. Where's the Robusto?" So we continued that, but then we had a shitload of them in stock, so they turned into what we smoke. But they're fantastic. Of all of we have those sizes in King is Dead, Long Live the King, Eastern Standard, but then we made like Lasar, we made everything. We made Tony's blends. So Tony, the La Barba Purple in that size is a fantastic cigar. So that's something I really enjoy smoking a lot.
So kind of go into a little bit one of your other partnerships here with AJ Fernandez. Now, AJ Fernandez's name is everywhere these days. He's working with everybody from the larger companies, General and Altadas, to boutique factories like yourself, boutique companies like yourself. I mean, and of course his own stuff. He is seemingly all over the place, manufacturing, partnering, collaborating. His tobacco is everywhere. I mean, it's pretty insane. So, but I want to ask, why did Robert Caldwell decide to partner with AJ Fernandez?
So I've known AJ forever. As I mentioned, I started in the industry distributing cigars to restaurants and hotels, and I went to, I think, what was his first trade show, and he and I met, and he had one table, or he might have had two tables, but he had either one or two. I mean, it was this tiny little shit in the back corner, and I met him, and we became friends. And then so a few years later, I got in the industry, but he and I were already friends. So in the beginning, he was making a lot of private labels for catalogs and doing a lot of production that way. And then he had, I think his Oval was one of the first cigar that he came out with, the San Lutano. Yeah, so I really enjoyed that cigar. Yeah, and then we just became friends. And then so he was always kind of like in my ear about, hey, let's do something. But then I had my own initiatives, and then I was working with Christian, and then I was doing my own thing. And then so finally, full circle, by the time I was ready to look into doing something in Nicaragua, because we, as a company, are very Dominican. So, I mean, we pride ourselves in being a boutique out of Dominican Republic because, I mean, who else is there? Every new brand goes to Nicaragua. Every new brand. So, you know, you have Four Kicks that made stuff in DR. You have, of course, Carrillo, who's a boutique. But you have no one kind of that had come new. So I'd say Four Kicks did it. But they aren't necessarily Crown Heads, a Dominican brand. They're kind of all over the place a little bit. But nobody really done it. And everyone's going to Nicaragua. So, and I have an affinity for Dominican tobacco. So I wanted to go to DR, and I wanted to give it time to grow. And then so by the time I was ready to do something in Nicaragua with AJ, once we kind of built that foundation with a company, at that time, Matt Booth he was looking to collaborate with us to do a special product as kind of a farewell. And he wasn't sure if he wanted to come back in the industry or not. So this is 2 years ago. And then so he calls me and he's like, I'm going to DR with AJ. And then I talked to AJ the year before at the German trade show, or in the fall prior. And AJ's like, when are we going to do something? I'm like, you know what? Now's the time, because I did the thing with Drew Estate a year ago. And I think it's time that we can kind of try to work towards something. And then so Matt, AJ, and I just ended up in the room together in Nicaragua. And instead of like Matt doing something and me doing something, we decided to just do it all together because nobody had done that. So I thought that was cool to do a three-way, a cigar three-way.
So the tea has actually been met with resounding success and real nice critical acclaim. You guys have gotten a lot of on a lot of top 10, top 25 lists and everything with that particular cigar. And of course you had another rendition of that partnership of that trifecta that came out this past trade show. Will we be seeing another collaboration with the three of you all here either this year or in the near future?
I hope so, because I think that we have a Connecticut and we have a Maduro, so I feel like we're missing like a Habano or a sun-grown. I feel like we're missing, because you got the Connecticut and you got the Maduro, but you don't have the natural wrapper. I guess you can't say natural anymore, but you don't have like that sun-grown Rosado, Habano. You don't have that sector, so I feel like it's an incomplete project. So I would like to say yes.
So, it was interesting. You used a metaphor earlier to describe why the relationship with Christian didn't work. It was like a two-headed snake, and you guys couldn't go anywhere because you guys were, basically, two heads trying to go different directions and everything. So my next question is, because there's been a lot of comparisons in a really good way, because there's a lot of similarities between you and Matt Booth. You guys have a lot of the similar energy, great businessmen. Really, have very diverse businesses outside of the cigar world. Many people may not know that, but y'all do. And like I said, relentless energy and just a very, just very interesting personalities. You guys are, I don't want to say you guys are crazy, but you guys have just really unique senses of humor, and you guys seem very similar. Is that ever a problem with those kind of similar personalities being partnered in the same relationship, or is it just a mentality thing?
It's never been a problem. And actually the beauty of it is I'll like have an epiphany and I'll call Matt like, hey, I think this. And he's like, I was just about to call you. So there's so many times where like the earth collides for, both of us at the same time, and I'll call him or he'll call me, and we'll have the same fucking idea just out of the blue. And then he'll call me or I'll call him and to tell him that. So that's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like 80% of the time that we have an idea, the other one had it like within 5 minutes. And then there's a great symbiosis between us where also like where we just kind of fit like this. Like I have a lot of capacities that he doesn't have and vice versa. So there's so many things that, I don't know, that we just like, we work very well. We gel very easily with things. And then honestly, I mean, there's a lot of honest conversations that we have where I'm like, hey, I'm not good at this, but you're great at this. Can you do this for me, or can you do this for me? So would you mind giving
an example? Because to me, like, you guys are very similar, and I'll tell you about an observation I had of why I came to this epiphany. But can you give me an example of like where he's strong and you're weak, or where you're strong and he's weak, where that's really come together?
Very easily, everyone fucking hates me and everyone loves him. So he's really good at that, which I don't understand, because I don't know. I've never.
You're a likable guy, Robert. Come on.
Like everyone thinks I'm a fucking asshole, which I am, but I always like to say I am an asshole, but I'm not an asshole in the way that they think I am. So he's the guy that everyone fucking loves. It's amazing. Like everyone loves Matt.
I'll agree with that. Everyone does love Matt. I'll agree with that statement.
Yeah. So for like a lot of stuff like that, I'll be like, hey, why don't you call him? You know what I mean? Or like, hey, I'm like, why don't you do that? Because I know it's going to go over. They're not even going to listen to what he says. They're just going to say yes because it's Matt and they fucking love him. And then, so that's with Matt. So a lot of it's like the PR stuff I let him do, or I'll kind of lean on him to assist with stuff. Or it could be something that I need help with for Caldwell that has to do with an account. And I'll call Matt and I'll be like, hey, can you call this guy for me? So there's a lot of like that genuine kind of like friendship that he has with everybody that I kind of lean on him for. And then with him, with me, a lot of it's on the factory level or on the manufacturing level, where I might be able to squeeze people or push people in a different way or communicate on a different plane with them. Because, when he came back, his relationship prior, he had a limited amount of control. And then so he wanted to have full control this time. So he wanted to spearhead all of his own endeavors. And that's great. But you have to remember we're making cigars. So, you know, you shake hands, you sign on the dotted line, you leave, and nothing happens. So I have had enough experience in the industry on the manufacturing side where I know the hands that you have to hold to the finish line to get the projects completed. And I know that yes can mean no, or yes can mean maybe, or yes is just an answer to get you the fuck out of the office. So he's leaned on me a lot on the production side, you know, copying me on emails with manufacturers, with box labels, with, you know, timelining me into stuff so that I can help him kind of audit what's going on with his brands. So I help him kind of on the back side and he helps me kind of on the front side. So that works very well because, you know, and Matt's also nice. So Matt has a way of talking to people in a very nice way, and I can call and rip their heads off, you know, and scare them and threaten them and make them upset, and that's not his thing. So I'm a very good
cop, bad cop.
Yeah, good cop, bad cop, exactly. And he's the good cop always, and I'm always the bad cop. So we do that very well. But I don't know, that relationship to me is a special dynamic because we oftentimes, like, we'll be in a setting or we'll be in a meeting and we don't even have to comment. And we can get in the car afterwards and just look at each other and not even speak words. We just know that we both kind of digested it in the same way. Or if something happened, like we'll both do the eyebrow. He does the eyebrow thing real well. We'll kind of like do a little glance at each other. Like, did you get that? And we're always on the same plane. And that to me is very cool. And it's very weird, but it hasn't in any way harmed the relationship because two people are so similar, it can cause a lot of problems. But it's been very helpful.
Sure.
And he also has a level of patience, and he has a level of trust, and he has a level of, I feel like, I don't know. He has like he has the things I don't have. Cause to me, I'm like, that guy's full of shit. Matt's like, why don't you give him a chance? I'm like, that guy's a piece of shit. Matt's like, I think he's a nice guy. So it's like the yin yang thing all the time. And the weird thing is we're both kind of pessimists inwardly, but outwardly I continue being somewhat of a pessimist, but outwardly he's very trusting and very like engaging and very like, let's give this guy a shot. And I'm very like, that guy's bad. So,
well, it's interesting. I'll tell you an observation that I had in just a second. But before that, I do want to make a quick note for people who are tuning in, and for you, Robert. I do have a thunderstorm going on outside of me right now. So if something happens, that's what's going on. So just want to let you know, we've got a thunderstorm going on, but the show must go on, as they say. But so the observation that I made, it was really interesting. I watched you guys, you and Matt, at this past year's IPCPR trade show, just having, busting the balls of my partner on Cigar Coop Primetime Special Edition, Will Cooper, and not to go into the full diatribe of what the joke was about and stuff, but it had to do with his road trip, and you guys were just playing off of each other, and it was almost like you guys were completing each other's sentences. It was almost like a rehearsed routine, almost. And I just sat back and I was laughing hysterically, of course, but it was just, I really was just like, these guys are like one and the same, and they totally get it. And I could see why a partnership's successful. But I wanted to bring it up specifically because you mentioned the two-headed snake metaphor, and so I thought that was interesting because you guys seem so similar. But that does make sense. You bring up a lot of good points about Matt. To talk about Tony for a second, the cigar that you're smoking or finishing up by now, because you said it was a smaller cigar. Now you distribute all of Tony's cigars. Tony Bellotto of La Barba Cigars. Now he had a fantastic year. A lot of praise in the cigar media world for his cigars and everything. When you see one of your partners have success like that, how does that make you feel? How does that make you feel?
It makes me very happy. I have a very well, it makes me proud and it makes me happy for them. And I'm also, I'm a cutthroat business guy, but at the same time, I like to see those around me successful, and I'd rather see them succeed than me. And this is something also maybe harder to digest. I have two business partners, but I accelerate things or bring things to market quicker for them than I do for us. So if, we had an instance over the last 12 months, I'm not going to say with whom, but with one of the brands that we distribute where it was like we could put our product, we had our product in production. We had it in the production line and they were going to be late to the market. And we actually paused our production, which is Blind Man's Bluff Maduro, and delayed it a year to bring to market that product in front of ours. So, it makes me super happy. And the other thing of that is Caldwell is, a big thing or a big little thing. And La Barba is a medium little thing. And then Room 101 was the same size as Caldwell under its prior distribution, but he has to rebuild. So to me, we're all part of the same team. So we all need to get to the same level. So if Caldwell's here and La Barba and Room 101 are somewhere here in terms of product sales, SKU mixes, things like that, we need to bring everybody. We all need to finish hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't believe in, Caldwell is pushing itself forward, and I don't believe in that type of thing, and that everybody's not moving together. And I genuinely, honestly say that. And, it's the rising tide raises all ships type bullshit, all that stuff. But also, I don't want to be at the finish line and then look behind me and wait for the rest of my team to come. I want to make sure everybody comes through at the same time. So I don't know. To me, it's very, very important that happens. And the other thing too is we're responsible for these guys' distribution. So they are giving me complete trust that we're going to bring product to market and distribute it in a timely manner. So if I'm going to fuck something up, it better be my product, not theirs. Because I trust in myself, but they trust in me. And to trust in me is very different than me trusting me. If they trust in me, it's blind faith. And so I'm very, very sensitive to that also, especially when something goes wrong and the phone rings and it's Matt or it's Tony, and I know that something went wrong and I got to take that call. I want to make sure that I've done everything in my power to get that brand at that point in time to where that brand needed to be. And I would feel very guilty and remorseful to not have done everything in my power to get them, to where they needed to be at that point in time. So and it stresses me out like a motherfucker because, like, I don't stress about Caldwell at all. I mean, I do a little bit, but like my stress, and not a diss on them, but my stress comes from me wanting to make sure that I service those brands to the best of my potential as down and back distribution. Because if I'm not doing that, then it's just shit for me. Because I don't know. I'm a cutthroat guy. I'm a business guy. But to me, the most important thing are like my handful of friends and my family, and that's all that matters in my life. And I consider both those guys in that handful of friends, and I want to make sure that I just always do right by them.
So the prioritization that you just talked about, like, putting someone else above yourself. Now, in the end, the business benefits. So that's always a positive, of course, and everything. But was this a lesson learned in the cigar business, or was this learned prior to your entering the industry? Was it taught to you by your family, or like, putting the team above oneself? It's a concept that we're all familiar with, as far as, if one person in the team succeeds, the entire team succeeds, that kind of concept. But was this a lesson learned inside the cigar industry, or was it something that you brought with you from like your childhood or, early adulthood?
I'd say it preceded the cigar industry, but I mean, I was raised well. I have good parents. I'd like to say they instilled in me kind of that virtue, but I don't know, man. Like I honestly, if you sat in on my sales meetings or the behind closed door, and all my sales guys will vouch for this, I always say what goes first. I always push, and I always tell them what's important to me. And, I don't know. I think, the virtue is something that I possessed prior, but I would not sleep well at night if I weren't conducting my business that way. And, it only goes so far. So, I mean, obviously the partners do their part. And so there's so much out of my control, but until I check all the boxes, I'll go to bed leaving something on the table for Caldwell, but I won't go to bed leaving something on the table for them. And again, I think the level of trust that I have from those guys with me, with what they're doing, because there is complete trust, I have to make sure that I fulfill that at all the times. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I've always kind of been that way. I mean, I always have looked out for people around me, and the fucked up thing, or the thing that hurts me, is I've had several guys that have worked with me who haven't felt that way, and it's very troublesome to me when they feel like I haven't done right by them, and that does happen. That's part of doing business, and that makes me bent out of shape like you won't believe. I get very upset.
Well, that's great that you want the best for your team, because like I said earlier, ultimately it leads to bottom line success in the business, you know, and I don't mean just bottom line in dollars and cents, but just building that brand, your brand up as a whole, and the team up as a whole, and everything. So one part of the team, the Caldwell team, that we hadn't mentioned before, and actually I didn't talk to you about this before the show, so I apologize if I'm catching you a little off guard, Robert, but something else that did come up recently is that you guys decided to partner with the Salesforce with La Polina. So now you've got another partnership, but just in a different aspect of the business. What ultimately led to that decision, rather than finding your own brokers or going in-house with in-house reps?
So that's a good question. So we work with La Polina in that sense in Texas, and we have also some uncovered territories where we're kind of like riding coattails with them with their reps, possibly on an interim basis, possibly long-term, to kind of see how it works. But it was kind of a trial thing, because La Polina, Sammy and Clay are two of maybe 5 pedigree blue chip guys in the industry, the guys that run that company. And they know their shit, man. Like, they're fucking good. And I trust those guys implicitly, and I think they're cut from a cloth of guys in the industry on senior management levels that very few exist anymore in the industry. But what we've noticed is the past several years, there has been a very obvious attack from major companies to take shelf space from smaller companies, which is something that occurs in every industry. But you've seen guys buying brands off the shelf. You've seen guys giving away the house. You've seen guys coming in doing a complete restock on a wall for no, I'm going to take all this shit out. I'm going to buy it from you, and I'm going to fill this whole wall with my stuff, and you don't have to pay me for it. Or like, you've seen just complete, and this is war. So you've seen a lot of this happening, and brands like ours and smaller brands, we're almost defenseless against that type of thing, because we can't compete when it comes to discounts and deals and giving shit away with the major brands. And I'm not going to name them, but you can figure it out. And so what you've seen happen also in that same time, so the playing field has changed. And this is, to me, something that started occurring post-FDA. But the playing field's changed, because it's no longer, like slap each other on the ass, the game's over. I mean, this is war. And then furthermore, you've seen a lot of good guys go in-house. And then in terms of representation, so a lot of the independent guys that were great came off the street and they found a house somewhere that they're working with. And then a lot of the older crew has gotten older, and not to say that they're not good at what they've done and what they do anymore, but the playing field changed. And when the playing field changed, so you have like these major boutiques in the market, and to name a few, you have Roma Craft, you have Foundation, you have us, you have ELOSion, blah, 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 whoever else I'm forgetting. So there's a few more that fit on that hand. And then you have the next segment above that, which is going to be, like the Tatuaje and that type of thing. And then you keep going up from there. But you have a lot of bigger boutiques that have come to market. So what's different now is, and I had this conversation with a guy yesterday, the old guys, what they were amazing at building. So they said, all right, these brands, and back in the day, let's say Fuente's new to the market. We're going to build this shit, and we're going to milk this shit. And we're going to pull milk off this cow every day. So if I keep feeding this fucker, I can keep eating from this fucker. So, just exactly as I stated, I mean, it's just a very easy thing. You build something up, and you help, and you do tastings and cut and lights and samplings, and the blends and the brands, and you walk guys through it, and then you become a part of that, and you keep feeding yourself from it. So that's the old genre. But then these guys, a lot of them are tired, or they've done it for 20 years, and they don't want to do that anymore. And I don't care how hot your fucking brand is, you still need that done. Mm-hmm. So, we have a hot brand, ELOSion, a hot brand, Roma Craft, Steve Saka, fucking whoever, Nick Melillo, hot brands. You still need to go in and cut goddamn cigars and do cutting lights. You still need to do educational seminars for the consumers. It's not just like sell, 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 or take order, take order, take order. And that leads me to the new crew. A lot of the newer guys are fantastic salespeople, but maybe their books are really broad and they have a lot of brands in their books. Or maybe they're sell, 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 and then they kind of miss out a little bit on the customer service. So we got to a point where we said, Jesus, man, what are we going to do? Because the market's changing and I don't know what's working. And to me, a fantastic model is Romacraft. I mean, Romacraft had no salespeople. Amazing. Direct contact with a store, this type of thing. You know, and then you see some other models that have worked. But we were approached by La Palina, and they said, look, we have this model in place where we have these direct guys and this and that and the other. And, you know, we know that you're looking for somebody. And so why don't we try splitting that person? And this is something to me that I thought was a brilliant idea. So we decided to try that, where we can have a seasoned, you know, groomed sales guy that can go out and he can do a La Palina event and he can do a Caldwell event and he can do a Caldwell tasting and La Palina tasting and he can memorize all of his shit. And he can act like the old brokers acted with the fervor of the young broker, but be directly representing both of us at the same time. So this is a grand experiment to see how it goes. And we've talked about doing other territories. I've talked to other companies about what to do. Because really right now, at this stage in the game for boutique brands, I feel like it's a very, very difficult moment to find the next right guy. So this is kind of a trial solution to that to see how it works. And again, I respect those guys implicitly. And the guy that we're doing that with in Texas, he's a fucking killer sales guy. You know, I really like him. I think he identifies with both brands. So, you know, we'll see what the future holds. Because again, this is something we just started a couple months ago and it's been a slow season. But I think that you'll probably see more and more stuff like that coming out, where you'll have kind of a collaborative group of a couple brands that otherwise, like, we wouldn't be able to afford in-house nationwide, but we could split it with other people. And that's a great negotiation to have. You know, if you can't afford in-house, but you want to have the service and you can't find an independent that suits it, you can split it. And at the end of the day, it costs you the same thing as having an independent if you chop it up between a couple guys.
And of course, the gentleman that you're talking about in Texas is Jerry Catrone, who's been a long-standing personality in the cigar business even before he became a rep. The guy knows cigars inside and out and knows a lot of different brands. So he's a great guy to be able to carry a lot of different brands and to be able, like you talked about, with the fervor that you were mentioning. So, you know, hopefully this model works out for you. So I guess the only question left on the table is, with all the collaborations that Caldwell Cigars has done, is there a La Palina Caldwell project?
No, we don't have any. We're still flirting, so we don't have anything planned. They have their production partners. I don't see anything like that on the horizon either. They have their production partners, and I think that what they're doing right now with their company, they've had a tremendous year and a half run. So they've been pushing very hard, and I think that their focus is the same as ours. So they're looking to push and continue to build that core where we're kind of in the same point right now.
Awesome. So, Robert, the last question I have for you tonight, I told you we're going to have a little bit of fun with it. You know, we've talked a lot about partnerships and collaborations tonight, and you've had some relationships that haven't gone well. You've had some relationships recently that have gone extremely well, to great success. And so the only question left, I guess, is if Robert Caldwell could partner and collaborate on a cigar project with any celebrity, who would it be? So music, athlete, actor.
Richard Branson.
Richard Branson.
Does he count as a celebrity?
I would say so. I would say so. Right. Okay, so
here's why.
Yeah.
That motherfucker, next to never, spent a single dime on direct marketing. He never ran ads. I mean, when he got bigger, he did. But like, I mean, he raced a boat across the Atlantic and broke down halfway, and the boat sunk, and he had this giant Virgin logo on the side. And he crashed a hot air balloon in the middle of fucking Morocco, and he had a giant Virgin logo on the side of it. So it's amazing, because how much does it cost to get 20 or 50 or 100 front pages of top newspapers nationwide or worldwide? How much does that cost? That costs infinity. I mean, no one could afford to get the front page of every paper. but you fucking wreck a boat in the middle of the Atlantic and you get rescued by choppers and your boat's sinking with a giant logo on it. And the guy did it over and over and over. He always did shit like that. And I think that the guy's such a brilliant marketer. And I think he's such a creative guy. So, and the reason that I say it is the following. The cigar industry is basically the same industry as you could call the wine industry or the beer industry, right? Like there's a lot of parallels there. So
luxury brand,
everybody knows shit about wine. Like generally speaking, you walk in a restaurant, you walk in a party, somebody swirl on the glass, they know some shit. And the only reason that our country knows anything about fucking wine is that these guys have enough money to educate the consumers. So the wine industry's got lots of money and it goes out and educates everybody, right? Beer industry, same shit, whatever. So cigar industry is like this big and we have no money. So the only way to educate people is like you do a cut and light and you tell them about tobacco or they go to a factory. So it's such a personal, like peer-to-peer educational system. So we can't defend ourselves and we can't build expertise among our consumers in a broad way. So this guy had no money and he was able to market, I don't know, 10 companies to $1 billion or more companies. I mean, the guy built more $1 billion plus companies than anybody ever. And he did all of them with no money. So if you can do that in a marketing sense and you can build all this shit using no money or next to no money, what can you do on an educational level when it comes to consumers and total public awareness on an industry? And so my incorporation of the guy into us as a brand, yeah, we'd sell a bunch of cigars called Virgin. That'd be cool. But really, I think it would impact the industry in a way with a capacity that no one else could. Because the guy thinks so far out of the box that he'd be just like, here's a flower blooming and everyone knows about cigars all of a sudden because that's who he is and that's what he does. So that would be my pick.
What's interesting about your pick of Richard Branson, and one of the things he's one of the guys I admire as well, not just for his business acumen, but how he goes about his business. And to earlier part of the interview, when you were talking about your relationship with your partners and how oftentimes you have to put your partners first, making sure that their production goes out first before Caldwell Cigars, because like you said, you want to have them at the finish line with you. You don't want to be turning around and waiting for them to play catch up. The thing about Richard Branson that I love is that he's all about his team. And he talks about one of his famous stories or quotes is that the customer is not always right. It's not always the customer first. It's actually your employees first. So it's his team and his company that comes first. And he says, if you take care of your company, you take care of your people, they will take care of the customer. And ultimately, you will have success. Is basically, I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically his mantra of how he operates his business. It's not about being the customer always being right. And it's not always about the customer being first. He takes care of his team first. So in a lot of ways, you guys are very similar. And I don't know if you knew that about him and you've kind of modeled it better, or it just happened to be a coincidence that I grasped on. But I think that's a really interesting observation about him being your pick, is that in a lot of ways, you guys are very similar in that regard.
Shit, he's got a lot more money than I do.
I can't help you there, Robert.
No, I haven't heard that quote, but that's a very good quote. That makes a lot of sense.
So, well, I wanted to thank you so much for joining us tonight. It was an absolutely fabulous pleasure having you. Really, really great to finally sit down and talk with you. I'm glad the leg healed up and nothing was lost. Other than the take that we got to redo today. So it actually worked out absolutely beautifully. You got to be on my 70th take, and I was so pleased to host you tonight. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having 69 would have been nice too, but thank you for having me. My pleasure.
I had the boys from SigFed on last week. It was our longest show ever, and they were actually happy to be 69 as well. They wanted to. They were actually going to be 70 if we had done the show as scheduled. But they were actually happy to be 69. So I guess there's something about 69 that everybody just wanted. So sorry to.
Everyone wants a little.
Sorry to disappoint you on that front, Robert. But again, really appreciate you being a part of this take, and it was an absolute pleasure to speak with you tonight. And everyone else, check out Caldwell Cigars or any of his many partners and collaborations with Matt Booth, Tony Villado, AJ Fernandez, Ernesto Perez Carrillo Jr., and who knows what else will be on the horizon. So check them out and do yourself a favor and pick up one of these cigars. The Long Live the King, Mad MF. Fantastic cigar. Recently did a review of this cigar on Cigar Dojo. You can check it out. And you guys might be seeing that I am sporting my Red Sox attire, my World Series championship T-shirt and everything. We will be doing a baseball show with cigar industry folks on Cigar Coop Primetime Special Edition this Tuesday. I don't do enough promotion for my partner who's helped me a lot along the way in Will Cooper, but I will say that it is one of the shows I'm really excited about. Hector Alfonso and Miguel Chodell of Crown Heads. We talked about Crown Heads earlier. Robert, he'll be on the show for the second year in a row for our baseball preview. So if you guys are baseball fans, check that out. It'll be this Tuesday night at 9:15 Eastern, 8:15 Central. Really, really, really awesome. Excited. But Robert, best of luck to you in the rest of the year. I know I'll see you at the trade show this year. I'm really excited for what 2019, the rest of 2019 has in store for Caldwell Cigar Company. And again, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely. This was our 70th take, everybody. 70 takes in the all in the past. So this is a fantastic, fantastic journey that we've had. We've got some great shows lined up for you in the future. So stay tuned to our Facebook page for upcoming events, and we'll be putting it out there who are going to be our guests and everything. So that will be exciting as well. So we got some great takes coming for you on the horizon for 71 takes and beyond. We'll have some great guests, just like our guest tonight, Robert. And of course, if you guys are listening on wherever you listen to podcasts, be sure to subscribe, leave a review. And I hear it's actually cool to unsubscribe, but don't forget to resubscribe again, because that bolsters my numbers and keeps us at the top there. And you can stay tuned to all our fabulous guests and everything. And you are listening to ELOsoFumarTakes exclusively because of Cornelius and Anthony Premium Cigars. But you can always check us out on our YouTube channel as well. We appreciate all of your likes, shares, comments, and all of your notes. We really, really appreciate it. And we appreciate everyone that we get to work with. And again, special thanks to our guest tonight, Mr. Robert Caldwell of Caldwell Cigars. For everyone out there, I'm Bear Duplessis. We'll see you next time.